make a new Spider-Man video.
When's the next Spider-Man video?
Cunt. We don't care about your anime ching-chong cartoons.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
I'm gonna put some dirt.
Get some bitches,
asshole,
you
make another
bitch-ass.
Spider-Man video.
Pizza time. About a year ago, I made a video talking about the best figures of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. This stupid video I made in my mother's closet managed to garner almost 35,000 views. I expected no one to see this, let alone 35,000. What the fuck? So now I feel a new video is way overdue. In this previous video, I talked about all the best versions of Spider-Man from the Spider-Man 2 line. But there's more to talk about, including the ones from Spider-Man 1 and the ones from Spider-Man 3. I'll cover the best of the best Spider-Man figures from each respective line and tell you which one is worth adding into your collection. First figure from the Spider-Man 1 wave will be the superposable Spider-Man with gargoyle base. The line came out in 2002 and this is their most popular figure, so let's get a look at him. So off the bat, you can see this figure holds up very well, especially for it being almost 20 years old. You know, given the age, that's pretty fucking impressive. Compared to other Spider-Man figures, you can see he looks kinda faded. Almost as if someone grabbed the Spider-Man figure, threw him in the dryer and left him in there for too long, and then out came this guy. That being said, he still looks very nice. Along with the dry brushing, you can see Spider-Man 1 specific designs, like the Spider-Man 1 back Spider-Man logo and the Spider-Man 1 front logo, as they were only seen in that first Spider-Man movie. Looking at the head, besides mine looking kinda squished, it does look really good, and unlike the other Spider-Man figures, he actually has silver eyes, which is more accurate to the movie. Another thing I prefer about this figure is that this dude's shoulder joints and his thigh joints are flush with his sculpt. This is in contrast to the later Spider-Man figures where he has fat balls. It just looks more aesthetically pleasing. It makes it feel less like a toy and more like a
sex toy.
One thing I don't prefer about this figure is how weird his articulation is. He's got a double ball joint, but it's kinda springy. It's weird. You'd expect these two ball joints to allow for great movement, but once you try to move it up, it springs back into place, which makes the two joints useless. You know, at least the shoulder can move outward, but even that's spring-loaded too, but not as bad as the neck. Along with the bicep swivel, he has a double-jointed elbow, rotation at the wrist, and finger joints to make the thwip hand, as well as the hinge there. So he's got this diaphragm joint, but it doesn't move left to right or up and down. And this joint's fucking useless too. At least his waist joint works. The legs move pretty well forward. Swivel at the thigh, double jointed knees, a rotation at the calf, a hinge at the ankle and toe, and he's got an ankle pivot. Considering his age, he still moves better than some figures today. Especially McFarlane. Since this is Toy Biz, they hooked us up with a badass accessory. An in-scale gargoyle base. This alone makes the figure worth it. I mean, you can use this for all kinds of figures like Spider-Man, Batman, etc. It comes with this screw attachment, so you can just slide this sucker on and then it's adjustable so you can put it on pretty much any shelf or your penis. There's also a hole in the back, so you can stick this on the wall with a push pin or a screw. And for the kiddies, you have this clip on the end of a string where you hook Spider-Man onto, just pull out the string and then push the button so that it goes back where it was before. What a neat little package you get with this figure. Really, I feel if this is your only Spider-Man figure that you decide to get, you'll be pretty satisfied. Yeah, that figure was good, but what if he had his heart broken? This is the Battle Ravaged Spider-Man. It's the exact same thing as the past figure, except he just looks fucked up. This is Battle Damage, not that shitty black spray paint Hasbro does. The fuck is this, shit damage? Did someone spread their ass all over the figure and then just shat on it? That's what it looks like. Nah, Toy Biz didn't play that. They gave us full-on, authentic Battle Damage
Sculpt!
Individually sculpted rips. You can see the skin underneath. The red paint done looks a little sloppy, but honestly you can pass it off as blood. Every inch has detail, which makes this figure the shit. And it just gets better with this iconic head sculpt. He looks like this twice in his movies, and honestly, this sculpt is pretty badass, man. This is pretty much the only figure out there that captures this look, and you can get this figure on the cheap side too, which is just crazy. What's not so cool is mine has a dot on his nose. You can pass that off as more battle damage, but here his skin tone, yeah, it kinda looks a little yellow, especially compared to the other Spider-Man figure. Articulation's exactly the same as the other one, so you can get him in pretty much any pose you want him to, getting either railed by enemies or whatnot, plowed from enemies like Sandman, Green Goblin, Venom, himself. He ain't beating Goku though. Just like Riley Reid, he can take it all. And to top it off, you know they always come through with the bases, and here we have one based off of the final fight with the Green Goblin from Spider-Man 1. Detail and paint galore, given as much care to the figure itself. Peg holes at the bottom so you can stand this guy up properly, and there's even a hole in the back, just like the gargoyle base, so you can hang this dude on the wall. That don't make sense, but it's cool. Highly recommend you get this one. Considering his price range is small and everything, he's a good pick. So, the two I just showed off, they're good picks and all, but you know, they're just your basic Spider-Man design, you know? At the end of the day, pretty much everyone's gonna have a Spider-Man in their collection. What if you want something more unique? Well, that's where the final figure of the Spider-Man 1 line.
The Amazing Spider-Man!
The one and only Wrestler Spider-Man. Yeah, this is a special one because not only is he the only human spider figure ever made. No, seriously, he's the only one. He's also the first figure I've seen with this rubber gimmick going on here, but we'll talk about that later. What I really wanted to talk about is how, because of like the rubbery sculpt and everything, he looks the most accurate to how he looks in the movie. Even the eyes look pretty good peeking out of the mask right there. All the details are here and are shaded with black. He really does look like a virgin in some sweatpants. Even got the Nike shoes, even though there's no Nike logo on it for obvious reasons. Mine's in pretty good condition, so you can even see the printing on the back of the figure. Just overall well proportioned and a good representation of Tobey Maguire's first act as Spider-Man in the movie. He comes with dismembered body parts, so you emo bastards can have a kick out of that. The real purpose of these is so that you can change this guy into his Spider-Man mode.
Which means ripping off his arms and legs.
Okay, so now you're gonna wanna take off his arms. So afterwards he's not naked, unfortunately. But we're left with this slightly inferior Spider-Man figure, which is decent, I guess. I don't know, his articulation isn't all that great. But you can see this Tobey Maguire head, which was under the mask the whole time, and it looks pretty good. So here you can see why the articulation was so limited. The rubber clothes combined with not so good articulation. Yeah, it's much to be desired, but it's worth it just to have this unique look for Spider-Man. Having both of them together is also a huge plus. And yes, he does come with a squishy mask, but I'm not going to put it on because it's ripped. Fuck you. This figure is just iconic for the look, his significance as being the only one of his kind. Oh yeah, this guy can get it, but unfortunately he goes for quite a lot right now, and even if you do find him, it's kind of hard to get him for a good price, so I suggest just stalking eBay and hope you get lucky. Truly a classic figure and very nostalgic to me. 10 out of 10. Perfect. We're not done talking about this guy yet though. Did you know that he was re-released 7 years later? Yes sir, he was, and part of the Spider-Man trilogy line. What the hell is that? So what is the Spider-Man trilogy line? So after Hasbro made these 5-inch figures, everyone was mad, so they made a Marvel Legends line to sort of make up for it based off figures from the whole Spider-Man trilogy. Some were good, some were bad, but the line didn't do that well and was clearanced off. With all this extra stock, Hasbro made this line in 2009 where they pretty much marketed these figures towards the kiddies. For Spider-Man, they used molds from Toy Biz and then repurposed them. But nothing too significant about that line, except for the fact that these two figures are the only ones worth talking about, in my opinion. So yeah, like I just said, this line is basically just re-releases and repaints of figures from Spider-Man 2 and the Marvel Legends Spider-Man 3 line. Most of these made the original figures worse. However, their main Spider-Man figure is pretty unique in the fact that it's the Spider-Man 2 superposable Spider-Man given a fabulous repaint. When comparing him to his original release all the way back in 2004, you can see that the old one is definitely better. However, this release has a brighter blue and red, which really makes the figure pop. And that's the real selling point on this guy, is that the colors do make it worth it. So yeah, all the details are here and sculpted. However, the plastic they use is slightly lower quality than Toy Biz. Most of the bright color you see on this guy is the molded plastic. The only things painted are the web lines and eyes. As for the paint, it could be better. It's applied very lightly and not as precise as it was before. Expect some quality control problems with this figure. One interesting thing to note is that the pins on the back of his shoulder joints are metal, whereas before they used to be just the red plastic. I just thought that was pretty interesting. So when I said that this new Hasbro release was lower quality, I meant it. The old version has super tight joints as if he came right out of the box, but this new one, it seems like Spidey had a little too much to drink, you know what I'm saying? Too much of that saucy pizza. But yeah, same figure head to toe. Hasbro just kind of molded the new figure weird. Toy Biz had a lot crisper paint and quality control than Hasbro. However, some might say the new figure has a more accurate color scheme to how he appeared in Spider-Man 3 and 2. He can pose the same as the older one too. So whenever he's not flopping over like a limp dick, he actually has pretty good articulation. The head's on a hinge so we can look up really high, and he's also got a rotation on that same hinge, as well as rotation at the base of the neck, which allows for crazy shit, you know? So he's got your standard forward and back armpit joint, and he's got an armpit joint inside the armpit joint. What type of centipede shit's going on here? After that, he's got your standard ball joint shoulders, rotation at the bicep, double jointed elbows, rotation at the wrist, and my favorite part, he's got individual finger articulation. So you can do any gesture like have him thwip or have him flip you off. He's got a great ab crunch, very useful. But then he's got this diaphragm joint, which is
useless.
Joint spins, leg forward, thigh joint, knee, foot swivel, foot hinge, toe joint, no pivot. All this articulation and they cut it! He came with the gargoyle base. It was really cool of them to throw this in. It really makes you feel like you got a lot with your money. Which is the best description I can give this guy, a lot with your money. A simple yet effective repaint of a figure that most people already liked anyway. So if you see this guy for cheap, I say pick him up. He's pretty well worth it. So those are the best figures made of Spider-Man's classic outfit. But what about the other costume? With the release of Spider-Man 3, we got one of the most legendary costumes of all time. And of course, there were toys made for that too. With a suit as iconic as Spider-Man's black suit, you bet your ass there were toys made of this suit. Toys up the ass. Unfortunately, most were part of the smaller lines, which are not in scale with modern figures like Marvel Legends. However, there were two made. Unfortunately, none of them are perfect, but I own both of them, so let's take a look at the first one. The first figure is pretty recognizable and probably one that you already have. Marvel Legends Black Suit Spider-Man from Spider-Man 3. Now, please excuse the condition that my figure is in. This is actually the figure I've had since my childhood all the way back in 2009. It is quite literally the only figure to have survived all these years later. And because of that, you can see that he's seen better days, but you know what? He's still pretty good in my opinion. He has problems. So ignoring all the bullshit, you can see that the sculpt is really good and comparable to that of the older Toy Biz figures. Both Spidey logos look divine, and I like the hexagon pattern they put on all the extra bits. Ignore the dark parts, they're probably just leftovers from when I shoved it up my ass. Okay, so here's where things get ball jointed head, but it doesn't move up at all. It barely swivels. He's got arm joints that barely move outward, but rotate well, I guess. Single elbows, wrist swivel, but like no hinge on the other side for some reason. His diaphragm joint is fucking useless. All his joints are fucking useless.
Keep your fucking voice down.
So yeah, this figure's kind of the black sheep compared to every other figure. By many accounts, this should be a steaming pile of dog piss, but honestly, the nostalgic value makes him worth having. If you want him, you're in luck, because they released him so many times as part of the Marvel Legends wave, the Spider-Man trilogy wave, twice, and there's even a variant where it's half and half, which honestly looks really cool. I think if you were to get him, I'd say get this version. It's pretty unique, and honestly, it's just cool to have. As for the figure itself, it is way from being perfect. He's really only worth getting if you have a personal connection to him. Overall, be cool. So the final figure we will be looking at today is one that not many people know exists. The Marvel Legends Black Suit Spider-Man is often believed to be the only one that Hasbro made for that movie. And that would be the case for a few years until the Spider-Man trilogy line, where we got an all-new black-suited Spider-Man in 6-inch scale. Simply call it the Black Suit Spider-Man or the Catapult Spider-Man. This figure is an anomaly, as literally no one talks about this guy except for me because I'm cool. Anyway, out of the box, you can see that all his details are sculpted and Okay, the head probably doesn't look that bad, but compared to the other Spider-Mans, it looks kinda bad. So as if you can notice, he looks identical to his 5-inch counterpart. It looks like they just repacked him for this line, but if you compare him next to the other 5-inch figures, you can see he's definitely 6-inch scale. This, combined with the deformed pea-brain fucking head, leads me to believe that they just took this mold and upscaled it, and in the process, the head got absolutely fucked. I actually first learned about this guy's existence from a video from the late Glenn Webb. Check out that video, link in the description. But getting back to the rest of the figure, you can see the sculpt looks actually really good. You can see that they painted the web lines with a dark gray, which actually matches how it looked in the movie. It wasn't silver. He's got the hexagon patterns on the what would be blue sections, I guess. Yeah man, even on the back it looks pretty nice. It's a shame the head couldn't look normal. The W's keep coming, my friends. His head actually turns and moves way better than the previous version, even looks up a little bit, which is a nice touch. His shoulders are on ball-jointed hinges, bicep swivel, double-jointed elbows, no wrist articulation, but at least it moves up and down. A diaphragm joint that actually works. Leg can go forward and outward, thigh joint, but he has a swivel at the top of the double-jointed knee, which is... I can't decide if I like it or not. This shit taboo to me. But anyway, his foot moves up and down, no ankle pivot still, but his articulation is still way better than the other black suited figure. One complaint I do have is that his shoulders don't allow his arms to move to his side. The closest you can get is swiveling his arms forward. This looks kind of weird. It looks like he's flexing his big ass muscles. But at least you can have him dance. No, stop. Get your ass on that bed. To further solidify my point about this guy being Marvel Legends scale, you can see him compared to the Marvel Legends, and he's actually taller. Compared to other Spider-Man, you can see that he's only a hair shorter. Are only figures of the black suit from Spider-Man 3. I can only recommend this to people who have a connection to the movie like myself or have a nostalgic value towards these guys. He does come with an accessory as you guys saw, but you guys don't care about that. Fuck the catapult. Hashtag fuck the catapult. Although the standards were incredibly low, this is by far the best figure of Spider-Man's black costume from Spider-Man 3 and is the one you should go with if you want to have this guy in your collection. Fellas, despite what your girlfriend tells you, size does matter, so let's see how they scale with each other. Pretty much all these guys are the same height, so I'm gonna use the gargoyle-based Spider-Man as reference. So here he is next to Marvel Legends, some Mayfex, Figma, Star Wars, SH Figuarts, and finally the Spider-Man 2 Pizza Scooter Spider-Man. And Sonic.
Come on, step it up!
Now hey, we're not done yet. Do you want one of these figures? Specifically, do you want a Spider-Man 2 figure? Well, lucky for you, I happen to have a giveaway going on. Or rather, I'm planning a giveaway from a figure from my own collection, so please be sure to subscribe and follow me on Instagram as I'll announce details at like a later date, maybe next year or something, I don't know. Just be sure to be 18, I know a lot of you bastards are young as fuck and think you're funny, but you're not. And with that and the previous video, I have covered all the best versions of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in action figure form that were ever released, minus all the bad ones. With these movies becoming somewhat of a cult classic nowadays, these figures have jumped up in price significantly. They used to be around $20, then they were around $40 to $50, and now they're just insanely priced. So if you want any advice on how to get them, I'd say just constantly stock and monitor sites like eBay and Mercari. That's where they pop up most of the time. Just wait and hope that someone lists it for a good price. That's honestly my best advice I can give you right now. These stupid pieces of shit mean so much to me because they were part of when I was a young lad. If you were to go back in time and ask me if I would prefer my mom's teat or one of these things, I'd probably choose one of these things. That's just how much they mean to me. And in my opinion, these are some of the only Toy Biz figures that still hold up to this day, especially the ones from Spider-Man 2. But now I need to ask an important question. Is this the end of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man? Will we ever get a new Marvel Legends? Well, most likely we will see him again. I feel like we will eventually, either as an anniversary line or with him being in No Way Home. I don't know, it's hard to tell. I really hope you enjoyed this weird video. My friend Spoon Dude talked to me. He's like, bro, I love your videos, but like they're kind of weird. And I have to say I agree. I call him a retrospective because that's the best description for it, but hopefully you guys like it. As for the future, I'm hoping you guys are willing to see me branch out onto other types of videos, maybe hunting or, I don't know, maybe one's not involving Spider-Man, because I know you guys love it when I do that. So thank you so much for watching. I'm out of here.
Hey, don't even think about doing anime shit. No one's gonna watch that.
What?
You heard him. Turn around and look at us. The palm of the sun.
Hey, Parker.
What do you want?
We know you're gonna try and do some weeb shit on here. Well, we're here to tell you to not do that. Look at how well your last anime video turned out. No one's gonna watch that shit.
You're lying. They'll support me.
No one's gonna watch that shit, fam. No anime.
But I like anime.
Bitch, people only like you for Spider-Man.
But no one even likes these videos. They'll watch anything I make. Come on, man. Have faith.
No one wants to see your dog-ass review any ching-chong toys. Give the people what they want and review us.
Yeah, review us, Spider Criminal.
Review's gonna cut off your nutsack.
If you don't review us, your ass and I are gonna have a hell of a time.
Then I guess I have no choice. The next video is going to be about Goku.